Thousands of years ago, Greek mythology told the story of a young man who fell in love with his own reflection. His name was Narcissus. He stared into the water day after day, completely captivated by his own image, until eventually he wasted away beside the pool he could not leave. Today, psychologists still use his name to describe a fascinating personality pattern: narcissism. But narcissism is not simply vanity or arrogance. It is a complex psychological system built around admiration, fragile self-esteem, and an intense need to feel special. So today, we're going to explore the real psychology behind narcissism, why some people seem unable to see anyone but themselves, and why relationships with them can feel emotionally exhausting. When people imagine a narcissist, they usually picture someone loud, arrogant, and obsessed with attention. Someone who constantly talks about their success, their beauty, their intelligence. Psychologists call this grandiose narcissism. Grandiose narcissists often appear confident and charismatic. They like being admired. They enjoy power, influence, and recognition. But there is another form of narcissism that is much harder to recognize: vulnerable narcissism. These individuals may seem insecure, sensitive, or even introverted. Yet internally, they still hold the same core belief that they are unique and deserving of special treatment. The difference is how they respond when the world fails to recognize that belief. Instead of boasting openly, vulnerable narcissists may react with resentment, passive aggression, or emotional withdrawal. They might say things like, "No one ever appreciates me. People always take advantage of me." In both cases, the same psychological pattern exists: a powerful focus on the self, and a deep need for the outside world to constantly confirm their value. One of the biggest misconceptions about narcissists is that they truly believe they are superior. In reality, many psychologists believe the opposite. Narcissism often hides a deeply unstable sense of self. When someone has a strong internal identity, they don't need constant validation. They can tolerate criticism. They can admit mistakes. But narcissistic individuals struggle with these things because their self-image is fragile. To protect it, the mind builds what psychologists sometimes call a defensive grandiosity, an exaggerated image of success, talent, or importance. This image must be constantly reinforced, which is why narcissists often react intensely to even mild criticism. A simple comment like, "Maybe you could do this differently," may trigger anger, defensiveness, or even personal attacks. From the outside, this reaction seems disproportionate, but psychologically, it makes sense, because the criticism isn't just feedback. It threatens the entire identity structure they depend on. Another core feature of narcissism is difficulty with empathy, not necessarily the ability to understand emotions, but the ability to truly care about them. Psychologists often distinguish between two types of empathy: cognitive empathy, understanding what someone else is feeling; emotional empathy, actually sharing or responding to that feeling. Many narcissistic individuals possess cognitive empathy. They can read people very well. In fact, some narcissists are extremely socially perceptive. But that awareness is often used strategically. Instead of responding with compassion, they may use that knowledge to influence or control situations. For example, they might flatter someone to gain admiration, or guilt someone into giving attention. Over time, relationships can start to revolve around maintaining the narcissist's emotional needs. Psychologists sometimes refer to this dynamic as narcissistic supply, a steady flow of admiration, validation, or attention that keeps the narcissist's self-image intact. When that supply disappears, emotional instability often follows, which is why conflicts with narcissistic individuals can escalate so quickly. So, how does a personality like this develop? Research suggests there is no single cause. Instead, narcissism emerges from a combination of personality traits and early experiences. Some children naturally have strong temperaments. They seek attention, stimulation, and recognition. If these tendencies are reinforced in certain environments, narcissistic traits can grow stronger. One pathway involves excessive praise. Children who are constantly told they are extraordinary may develop an inflated sense of entitlement. But the opposite environment can produce a similar result. Children raised by emotionally distant or highly critical parents sometimes construct grand identities as a psychological shield. Instead of feeling inadequate, they create a narrative of superiority. In both cases, the result can be the same: a fragile inner self protected by a powerful outer persona. Modern technology can intensify this dynamic, not because social media creates narcissism, but because it provides an endless stage for validation, attention, and comparison. So the question many people ask is simple: can narcissists change? The answer is complicated. Change is possible, but it requires something extremely difficult for narcissistic personalities: self-awareness. A person must be willing to question their own behavior, to recognize the impact it has on others, and to tolerate the discomfort of seeing themselves realistically. Psychotherapy can help with this process. Over time, therapy can strengthen emotional awareness and empathy. But progress is often slow, because the very defenses that protect the narcissist's identity also resist change. Understanding narcissism is not about labeling people as villains. It is about recognizing psychological patterns. Because once you understand how narcissism works, something important becomes clear. Their behavior is rarely about you. It is about maintaining the fragile system that holds their identity together. And sometimes the healthiest response is simply learning to set boundaries, because your role in life is not to provide someone else with constant admiration. Your role is to live your own story. I'm Garlic Man. If you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind human behavior, subscribe for more. And tell me in the comments, what behaviors do you think reveal narcissism the most?